about these individuals. But because the minister has to catch up with a lot of other things, he has to quickly come in and inaugurate this. And so as we progress, I'm going to be doing some recognitions of members of the committee as we progress in this event. And so without much ado, I'd like to warmly and honorably welcome the Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports, Mr. Sunday Akindare, for his...
She gives us a list of all those who are inaugurating this month. We need a complaint.
Go ahead, sir.
No, there's a program. The PS.
Sorry, the PAM sec is supposed to give us his opening remarks, and then we have the Honorable Minister. The Honorable PAM sec. Over to you, sir.
I don't know which is better for you guys, that I stand or I sit. Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports Development, Mr. Sunday Dare, very esteemed guests, business moguls from around the country, all here present, members of this working group that will be inaugurated today, management of the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development here present, gentlemen of the press. I want to welcome us all to this very wonderful event this morning, which to us is indeed one of its kind, and the beginning of a relationship that we hope will change the landscape of sporting and sports funding, and indeed youth development in Nigeria. What we're about to do this morning is a feat that we in the ministry did not take as small. We see this as a foundation of what it's able to forever lead youth development and sports development in this country to a great pedestal completely. So we are hoping that the partnership with the private sector in the development of sports and evolving a policy that is novel or one of its kind is one that we very much require at this time, because indeed we've had several challenges. But what we're about to do today, we hope, is going to address some of the gaps, address some of the challenges, and then push us forward where we need to be, such that we will be able to compete globally as time goes on. Having said that, I will not preempt my minister in his address this morning. I just want to say a very big welcome to all of you here present, to all stakeholders. And those of you that are here, our friends from the media, we want to say a very big thank you for how you have always supported us. And we are going to seek more of your support as we begin to do this, because we need not only Nigeria to know, but the world to know that we're taking on a new trajectory that we hope will change the face of sporting in Nigeria for good. Having said that, once again, let me welcome you all. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Please, can we give him a resounding round of applause? What is very instructive for this occasion is that we believe that unlike in the past, where recommendations and suggestions are thrown in the trash can, this is implementable, and it is going to be implemented to the glory of God and to the progress of Nigeria. Can we please once again give him a resounding round of applause? When there is a synergy between the corporates and the government, it becomes a very, very unique one. And this is exactly what is happening this morning. And so, I'd like to quickly invite a man of vision, a man that you must be very, very, very agile to work with, a man that you must key into his vision, Mr. Sunday Akindare, for his welcoming remark. Honorable Minister, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me also just welcome you very warmly once again to Package A of the National Stadium, Moshood Abiola Stadium, Abuja. which is our national stadium. A good morning to everyone. For those that flew in from Lagos, you must have left your homes very early. If you lived in VGC, you sure must have left your home at 5 a.m. this morning to make it to the airport. You left at 4:45. I know the drive time. For those in Ikeja, I'm sure you left your home at 7. For those of us in Abuja, we had the luxury of leaving home at 9:15 and make it here. So we must welcome you that took that flight all the way from Lagos. I think that your journey here will be worth it, because what we're about this morning is a continuation of what was started several months back. I dare say what was started 3 years back, but accelerated in the last 3 or 4 months to bring us to this point. So at a progressive level, we have witnessed progress, if I'm allowed to say that. And because we do not want to lose steam, we want to stay through to the action plan we all agreed upon. I am not doing any protocols because my peers are taking care of that, but I'm sure you know that you're warmly welcome. Let me especially welcome the Eco Bank for being really part of this, and other members of the organized private sector. I'm sure along the way we'll meet to have direct conversation. Of course, our team from the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, who have been part of this process, you're also welcome. I thank my peers for welcoming the members of the press who have been able to give visibility and resonance to what we're doing here today. So this morning, it is with very great delight that I welcome you all to the auspicious occasion of the inauguration ceremony of the Steering Committee of the Sports Industry Working Group, SIWG. Let me, therefore, on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, also congratulate all members of the Steering Committee of the SIWG. This is perhaps the most important committee the sports sector in Nigeria will ever encounter because of the work we're about to bestow on them. When I became minister, barely 6 months ago, one of my biggest concerns was how to move sports away from being mere recreation to business. And so the opportunity came during the 25th NESG Summit in Abuja, which invited me to chair its sports industry business roundtable session, I think the very first of its kind. The session featured various speakers from all sectors, emphasizing the challenges in developing sports as a viable business sector, capable of attracting investments and delivering returns to investors. Therefore, the SIWG is an outcome of that session. It is a public-private dialogue, PPD, platform established with a mandate to create synergy and ensure a closer working relationship between my ministry and the NESG, so as to harmonize and harness the work done by both the NESG and the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development to unlock the potentials of the sports industry and deliver its benefits to the public, private, and social enterprise sectors, with a view to supporting the delivery of the short, medium, and long-term ministerial strategies for driving the growth of the sports industry in Nigeria. Furthermore, to this, we also had an interministerial technical session on sports industry development at the NESG office here in Abuja, which addressed cross-sectoral, cross-cutting issues affecting the development of sports as a business in Nigeria. This session made far-reaching recommendations on delivering solutions based on 4 key triggers, which I think the NESG has a patent for that, though I've taken it away from them. The 3 I's and 1 P. I've also been a better marketer of that concept. The A for infrastructure. That's the first I. The second I for investment. The next I for incentives. And the last one for policy. Infrastructure. We have clear infrastructural gaps in our sports development, and it is important that when you talk about sports industry development, you must pay attention to infrastructure. Investments. Determining the quantum of investments required to achieve the goals and targets outlined for developing the industry with an annual revenue target of 2 trillion, 1.5 to 3% GDP contribution, 6 to 10 million direct and indirect jobs creation. Incentives. Outlining the incentives needed to attract the determined level of investment and how the government ensures the inclusion of the private sector in developing the sports industry through market-based policies and incentives. And then policy, outlining the policies required to propel growth in participation in sports at the grassroots level, how this growth in participation can be translated into greater demand for sporting goods and services, and how government can address the cross-sectoral issues required for the growth in participation, investment required for the development of the sports industry. In its wisdom, the session also recommended a governing structure where it rested the authority of the apex decision-making and approval of the SIWG in what is now called the Steering Committee, which sets the strategic direction for the working group. The Steering Committee is a 14-member committee made up of equal number of representatives from both the public and the private and social enterprise sectors of the Nigerian economy. Accordingly, it is my pleasure, therefore, this morning to present to the Nigerian public members of the Steering Committee as follows: the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, the Federal Ministry of Education, the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the Federal Ministry of Health, and of course the OPS, members of the organized private sector. Let me say, when we met last year in Abuja, every single ministry mentioned here had representatives for the 2-day deliberations that we had. Therefore, the Nigerian sports sector, and indeed all Nigerians, look to see you drive the turnaround that we expect, turning sports into an industry. The ministry will continue to support your work with the necessary resources within its availability. Therefore, this morning, it is my singular honor to inaugurate the Steering Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And ladies and gentlemen, you must agree with me that that speech has already set the tone of what we expect from the committee, believing that this committee will bring about desired changes that we have clamored for over the years. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And so I'd like to quickly invite Nkechi Obi, a lady that I believe has the energy and the drive to also be able to move things around as it were. Nkechi Obi, over to you.
So we don't have the Honorable Minister. Members of the Sports Industry Working Group Committee, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Minister has told us just now that the public sector members of the Steering Committee are the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, Ministry of Education, Women Affairs, Industry, Trade and Investment, Information and Culture, Finance, Budget and National Planning, and the Federal Ministry of Health. The private sector and the social enterprise sector is also represented, and it's my pleasure indeed to read out their names and give you a small, if I count your name, please, let everybody know who you are. Read out a small profile so everybody has an idea who is going to do this. The first person on the list, who is also the co-chair of this steering committee, is Mr. Udemet Ufot, MFR. Mr. Ufot is the Group Managing Director of SO&U Limited, which was set up in March 1990. He's been the youngest ever president of the Association of Advertising Agencies of Nigeria, AAAN, a fellow of the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria, and the immediate past chairman of that same body. He's a board member of the NESG. He's also a chairman, board of Leap Africa, and the director of Special Olympics. So He's here both as a businessman and as a sports person. The second person, Mr. Laoye Jayola, the CEO, board member and CEO of the NESG, an economist and former managing director of Kakao Discount House. The third person is Mr. Yaya Maikori. Mr. Maikori is a lawyer and chairman eminent vocal group of the sports industry thematic group NESG. He's also the founder of Global Gaming Company Limited and partner Law Alliance. And is an experienced solicitor with a strong history of working in the gambling, gaming, casino, sports entertainment, media, and e-commerce industries. It's my pleasure to call Dr. Iken Nawosu.
It appears that the case is
first-class graduate in law and currently
we just keep going. We keep our eyes at the end of the
because some of the other sectors are begging at material level. Mr. Chineye Mbauzu.
It's better. That's what we want to.
Yeah, but you are the catalyst.
His managing partner, Grand Central Limited, is a successful entrepreneur with proven ability to lead teams to grow revenues and market share through innovation and people leadership. A notable consultant to public and private sector, corporate IT and technology ecosystem, and an immediate past country manager for Microsoft West Africa and Glophone. Engineer Opeyemi Okunori. He's the founder of Silicon Harbor Investments Limited, country representative for Franco-German company Denia, formerly Safran Mofa, a global leader in identity management systems. He's also a member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria, and Venture Capital for Africa, VC4A. We have two members who have unavoidably could not make it this morning. At the last minute, they had emergencies. But Mr. Dele Odubemi is the country manager, JC Deco, Grace Lake, Nigeria, and an experienced C-level executive with a demonstrated history of working in the marketing and advertising industry. He's also skilled in marketing management, digital strategy, advertising, integrated marketing, and brand architecture. And Dr. Engineer Ahmed Hamdi is Executive Director of the African Union Scientific, Technical, and Research Commission, and the former head, Science and Technology and ICT Division of the African Union Commission, with an accumulated national and international work experience of 27 years, out of which 13 years were devoted exclusively to science and technology policy for development. And last, but by no means the least, is my humble self, Nkechi Obi, Managing Director of Premium Sports Management Services. I also serve as the lead sports industry thematic group and secretary of the eminent vocal group, both in the NESG. And that's about it.
Nkechi didn't also tell you that she's an iron lady, because I know as an iron lady of repute, and I believe that with Nkechi Obi as a member of this committee, a lot of things, alongside very experienced people in this area, a lot of changes will come about in sports in Nigeria. And I believe that the minister is totally committed to this, unequivocally committed to this, because I believe that a new dawn has come for Nigerian sports. And so I'd like to quickly invite the Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports Development to do the very great event for which we are gathered this morning. That is inauguration of the ceremony. I'd like to invite all the members of the committee to please rise.
Come out there.
Yes,
Please can sit.
can we please?
No, let's
Please.
Okay.
I'm grabbing this one.
Yes, Ramsek
You're
is
the
the
one
co-chair.
updating us.
So, Ramsek has to be here.
They're inaugurated.
Ramsek is the co-chair public sector.
So where am I? I'm supposed to wait here?
No, you're supposed to come.
You're coming in.
No, no.
Honorable Minister.
Not the co-chair, come on, come here. Come here. Leave the co-chair. Leave the co-chair.
All right.
So, Let me, this morning, on behalf of the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, Federal Republic of Nigeria, in partnership with NESG, and of course, the OPS brackets, I have the honor this morning to inaugurate the steering committee that will look at sports as business and help to chart the next critical steps, or let me say the critical path to achieving the model of business we want for our sports in tune and in line with what we have of global best practices. So I congratulate you, and on behalf of the sports loving Nigerians, the sports community, both investors, athletes, all the critical stakeholders, we trust this into your hands, believing very well that eventually you will deliver a sports industry model that this country can adopt. Thank you. Congratulations.
All yours.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Can we please, photographers, please, can we have the photo session now, please, quickly? I believe the chairman is going to respond on behalf of the committee members.
Are they the ones who are saying?
No, we are saying they have to come to sit, eh? They know that we are coming.
You see her now?
The Honourable Minister for Youth and Sport Development, Mr. Sunday Dare, please permit me to stand by established protocol to save time. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, at the 23rd Nigeria Economic Summit in October 2017, themed Opportunity, Productivity and Employment, Actualizing the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, there was a consensus that focusing purely on what is usually referred to as the real sectors of the economy will not generate enough momentum for the pace of growth that is required to catalyze our economy and ensure rapid, inclusive, and sustainable growth. The summit noted that sports as an industry, as well as the other emerging sectors like the creative industries, could be a key piece in creating youth employment, inclusiveness, and economic transformation. It is therefore my honor and privilege today to stand before you as the co-chair of the newly inaugurated Sports Industry Working Group on behalf of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, representing the private sector. Today, once again, NESG and the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sport Development are making history, just as they did in December, when the first ever MOU in the history of Nigeria on sports industry development between the ministry and NESG, or the private sector, was signed. Today, another milestone towards ensuring the industrialization of sports through a PPP model has been reached. the inauguration of the Sports Industry Working Group as the body responsible for ensuring that there is a continuous dialogue and cooperation between the public, private, and social enterprise sectors to deliver a viable sports industry in Nigeria, especially between the private and social enterprise sectors and the key MDAs that impact on sports industry development. The last 6 months since the Honorable Minister assumed office has witnessed several engagements towards the goal of a private sector-led sports industrialization process that seeks to deliver a sports sector capable of lifting our sports beyond participation and positioning Nigeria as a truly great sporting nation in the community of nations. The Sports Industry Working Group is just one of the major steps in the agreed roadmap developed by the ministry, working closely with the private sector as represented by the NESG, and I'm truly honored to serve alongside the eminently qualified men and women in this group and deliver on the mandate assigned by the Honorable Minister to address cross-cutting, cross-sectoral cooperation issues in the sports sector with a view to fast-tracking the repositioning of the Nigerian sports sector as a sustainable, private sector-led social, economic, and community development platform in line with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals and 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It's even more an honor to represent the private sector as co-chair of this group and to work assiduously to deliver on the goals of the sports reform agenda built on the key 4 pillars of sector-specific incentives and targeted investment through key sports infrastructure backed by vibrant policy. And as Minister indicated earlier, the 3 I's and P's. The private sector is committed to playing its own part in sports industrialization agenda through investments and key infrastructure that will trigger the development of the ancillary sectors of the industry and deliver the revenue streams, jobs and socio-economic development we all know sports can deliver to any country if well executed. Through the SIWG and working closely with the public sector, represented by the leadership of the key ministries considered critical to the development of viable sports industry, driven by increased grassroots participation. It is our belief that locally and internationally, Nigerian sports will experience an upward trajectory in the coming years. On behalf of my colleagues in the private sector and on behalf of the NESG, I thank the Honorable Minister for his commitment to this process of reform and repositioning sports in Nigeria and for finding us fit and worthy to execute the tasks assigned to the Sports Industry Working Group. We shall do our best to live up to expectation and the trust and confidence reposed in us by the Minister and the good people of our great country, Nigeria. Thank you very much, sir. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very, very much. That was very instructive, and I believe that it set the tone as well for what the task ahead is. But quickly, we need to quickly excuse the Honorable Minister now. He has another urgent national assignment that he has to attend to, and I'm sure he's going to join us later in the session. And so, can we please quickly excuse the Honorable Minister as he takes his leave?
We'll see you off.
Members of the committee, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course, The idea of this session, before we take the tea break, is to have comments and possibly questions or clarification before we break into the business session as well. But most of our colleagues are outside, and we need to hold on for a while. I think they're having a word with the minister, and then we can have them back to us and pursue we allow them to do. Is that okay? I welcome us back. Distinguished colleagues who may want to ask one or two questions or make remarks. And so, my colleagues that are here, the floor is open for you now. If you have questions or clarifications that you need to make, can we please quickly do that? Can we please quickly come forward, identify yourself, and then we'll take your question. I think the members of the committee should come this way. You're the chairman. Right, it's better to see that.
I think the minister see too. Happy.
Identify yourself.
Where's my coach now?
We wonder where doesn't matter.
Coach has gone with minister.
Yes.
Then be brother. And I'm going to check on that now. Say I'm going to pull up. Yes. I think we can. Yeah. Yeah? Is it the one from that picture? I'm surprised. I just said hi.
My name is Martin. I'm the publisher of the Person News. My question is this, out of committee. Over time, the private sectors in Nigeria have been so laid back when it comes to sponsoring sports. Several previous governments have tried several ways to lure the private sector into investing more in our sports, but we've not been that successful. I remember sometimes we had the tax rebates. All these were meant to bring out the private sectors to structure Nigerian sport, but we've not really been successful in that regard. With this committee, have a way in luring these private sectors who have been so laid back in sponsoring sports to come out to sponsor Nigerian sports and invest more in Nigerian sports, because we've not seen much of that of recent time. Sports has always been government funded, and we're going to see more now of private sector involvement in funding of sports in Nigeria. Thank you so much. The committee, please.
No, let's give you a
Sorry, I missed out the question.
Got it. Thank you very much. As you heard in the Minister's presentation and re-emphasized in my response, the program that we are running is anchored on 3 I's and a P. For the private sector to see viability in sponsoring or supporting sports the way that they should, the policies have to be in place. We must get the framework right. And so the beginning, in the first instance that was done in December, was that the government and the private sector agreed through the NESG to put in place an MOU that would set forth what we are seeing unfolding now. So in moving forward, once we can, as the SIWG, work with government to ensure that the right policies are in place, that incentives are also in place to encourage investors to invest in sports, not just as participating sports, but more as something that yields commercial value. Once incentives are right, you draw the investments. And those investments will be in different ways, whether it's to sponsor athletes themselves, whether to build or invest in infrastructure. There are different ways, and you see the entire value chain will be activated to ensure that even manufacturers also benefit from all of this. So you will find that, unlike in other countries, where the key manufacturers in this sector are key supporters of sports, you can imagine the kind of things that Nike, Adidas, and co do. We can begin to create our own platforms that will see value in supporting sports and those who perform in sports. But the first thing is that the policy must be in place to support this. That provides the framework. And what we are doing now is really the starting point. And let me use the opportunity to really commend the minister, who, from my experience of NESG, sometimes you have to drag the public sector to support initiatives. This minister has been on the front line. As he himself said today, in selling the 3 I's and P, has virtually seized that from this group to push it. And I can assure you that if that structure of 3 I's and P are effectively articulated and delivered, you'll see a change in sponsorship. Thank you. I think maybe Dr. Mostly want to add to that. But he's attending. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know that we're making history today. The transmutation of sports from a participation aspect or category into industrialization is doing something different in Nigeria. It is opening up a new economic sector that will drive new revenue streams and new employment streams, further diversifying the Nigerian economy in line with the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan of President Muhammadu Buhari. So, the private sector is expected to lead economic development under the federal government's economic policy. That's what the Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports Development recognized.
by having this sports industry working group set up with a co-chair from the public sector and a co-chair from the private sector. That partnership, which is also in line with the NESG's template of PPD, public-private dialogue, is the best way to open up several sectors that the NESG has pushed in the past. Today, it's a new trajectory. And the private sector will play its role now that the public sector has said, we are ready, we are willing, and we are available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there further questions before we take a break? My distinguished colleagues from the press, please can you come over? Just quickly identify yourself and then go straight to your question.
My name is Olusha Alade. I present Sunrise Sports and Sports Dialogue. My question goes to the chairman. Can you tell us in just one word, what is the mandate of this group? What is your mandate? That's number one. And number two, how soon can we start seeing results? I remember about 2 years ago, we had a group, a business group that came into, they wanted to partner or they partnered the government in terms of bringing back the National Sports Festival. And I really don't know much about the group any longer. I don't know what they are doing right now. So your group, how soon can we start seeing the benefit and result? And in one word, what's the mandate? Thank you very much.
One word, one phrase.
One word.
Well, I think you picked on the wrong man to ask for one word. I'm an ad man, art director, copywriter. So you want one word, eh? Our mandate in one word is transform. Our mandate is to transform the sports industry in Nigeria. Move it from participatory to an industry. So the one word, transform. Members, am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. And how soon can you see results? I repeat, with the kind of minister that we have, leading from the front, driving, pulling, encouraging, supporting. What we're seeing today is the beginning of those results. The first thing is to agree, as Dr. Ngotu said, we are willing, we are able, and we have the capacity. We have a team here who is committed to make a difference. But of course, Rome was not built in a day and can't be built in a day. A lot of work has to be done in terms of the policy formulation, as I said. And of course, having been wandering around for so long, sometimes even the sponsors have been cynics. I know that for many years, a client that I worked for, Globacom, was a sponsor of the CAF Awards. 2 years or so ago, they withdrew. And why did they withdraw? They felt they were not getting value for the money being spent on those awards. And the awards, as you know, moved from Nigeria to Ghana. So the very first thing is, let the policy be right. Let the incentives be in place. We are going to commence our work. And once the first I and the P are in place, the other two I's will fall into place and you'll see action. Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that, particularly when you made reference to National Sports Festival 2 years ago. A lot of times we build our house on the roof instead of on the foundation, and we're surprised that the house doesn't stand. Over the years, we've been saying the private sector should get involved, invest in sports. I always tell people sponsorship is not investment. Sponsorship is the private sector trying to use a property to sell their own product. When you are not able to sell the product by associating with it, then you will take a lead. What has happened to us in sports is that we have not built the brands and the industry that will enable the private sector to leverage sport for their business and brand benefits. So they move to other things that give them immediate returns. The Sports Industry Working Group is here to partner with the public sector to put in place those things that will enable us to build the brands and build the industry that will now support all that sponsorship we want to see. We have not built a local kit manufacturing brand in this country. We don't have one. We don't even have any local real estate company involved in building stadium. We don't. This stadium was not designed by a local architect. So at the end of the day, we have not localized our sports industry. So the sports industry working group is to ensure the localization of our sports industry by ensuring the right amount of investment is brought in, backed by the incentive to encourage the private sector to bring that investment, deploy that investment into the main trigger area for building an industry, which is infrastructure, and help that along by a robust, viable policy. You have those four ingredients, you start seeing results. It's my belief, if the way the minister is going, in fact, we have to keep up with him. I think he wants to see results in 12 months. So everybody here is working against time. But we're not promising, but we know the minister we're working for. If those results don't appear in 12 months, many of us will be brought before the class to explain ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nkechi. What is instructive for me is the fact that these gentlemen, esteemed gentlemen and lady, are reputable people, and for them to stake their neck on this is a sign that it works. The fact that we've had a mindset for a long time that anything like this does not work. Now there's a change of attitude, there's a change of mindset. That is very, very instructive. And I believe that it's just a matter of time. In no time, this will crystallize into proper action and concrete development for sports in Nigeria. I'd like to see if there's any other question before we take a break. Okay, Nkechi. Okay, the Honorable Minister will join us shortly because the meeting has been shared, and so he will take a detour back. But as is indicated on the program, we would like to strictly follow the programming as it were. We're supposed to, if there are no further comments or questions, I'm sure we could take that later in at the afternoon session. But quickly, we need to take a break now. I'm believing that when we come back, the retreat proper will start. And if there are further questions or clarification from my colleague, I know that we can direct it to the chairman or to Nkechi or any member of the committee. But what is instructive for me, gentlemen of the press, is the fact that we are partners in this. Whatever it is, we need to give it all our effort to make it work. And I believe that collectively, we can drive this. Thank you very much. And we'll take a break and we'll be back later. Thank you very much for coming.
Oh, thank you. I have the card.
Breakfast is set.
Hello, how are you? Morning.
My name is Dauda.
Dauda, how are you?
Yes, I'm from OTA. We had a program that is called Weekending.
Weekending.